Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a first look at the brand new Community Day Skeledirge in the Open Great League. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Smudgy, so many thanks for the battle submission. On this Community Day, Skeledirge gets access to two new moves, Legacy Blast Burn and Torch Song. Torch Song has the exact same stats as its current move, Disarming Voice, but it's fire type and it comes with a guaranteed attack boost. So today, Smudgy's going to be testing out Incinerate, Torch Song, and Shadow Ball, as that way he can have some coverage on his Skeledirge. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at this Pokemon in action for the very first time. Hopping to the first match, leading into a Superior with Malamar. Superpower is going to inflict some very solid damage, safe switch into Credilli, and the opponent is actually going to fire a bait on alignment, giving an entire free bullet seed to this Credilli. Rock Tomb is going to connect, getting Superior very low. Superior is going to switch out, and Wigglytuff hits the field. Wigglytuff immediately going to get debuffed by Rock Tomb, so now these charms are not nearly as threatening as they typically would be. Wigglytuff forced to go for an Icy Wind here if it wants to pick up the knockout, and that's going to be all of its energy down the drain. And now the star of the show, Skeledirge, hits the field. Skeledirge, this is only a double resisted Swift, so Skeledirge not going to care about that damage whatsoever. In comes Lapras, and here is the moment for Torch Song to shine. Torch Song grabs the shield, but what you can't shield are these guaranteed attack boosts. Now Skeledirge going for another Torch Song, and that's gonna rock the Shadow Lapras. Shadow Lapras getting absolutely deleted by a double boosted Skeledirge. Sparkling Aria is gonna be shielded. Skeledirge with a full farm down. All that's left is the Superior, and it looks like we're going to have a full 1v3 with Skeledirge to start the day, and you can't ask for much better than that. Leading Malamar into Gastrodon in the next match. Obviously, you would definitely prefer to have this Gastrodon aligned onto the Credilli, but keeping the Mud Slapper away from the Skeledirge is going to be paramount. The opponent is going to no-shield the first move. Malamar no-shielding as well. It's going to be a Body Slam bait from the Gastrodon. Gastrodon going for another Body Slam. This will not be enough to KO the Malamar. Malamar can hang on here, not by much, however, and just going to under-tap the Superpower to guarantee that this damage lands. The opponent is going to use a shield. In comes Credilli. The opponent not switching out. Instead, they're going to stay in with the Gastrodon, allowing themselves to get fully farmed down, and they don't make the Earth Power. They only got to the Body Slam. Opponent now going to send in Dunsparce, and it's an Astonish Dunsparce. Oh my goodness. Astonish, of course, still a pretty good move, whereas Rollout did get nerfed, so the opponent trying something a little bit interesting here. Either way, Astonish or Rollout, you're going to want to keep it well away from this Skeledirge. Opponent now going to pivot out after they lost so much ground on the Dunsparce. They're going to send in Dugong. Dugong is now debuffed, and Skeledirge hits the field. Skeledirge is going to be committing the shield. The opponent is going to full send a Drill Run. Skeledirge now gets to fire off the Shadow Ball. I think there is some consideration for potentially using Blast Burn on Skeledirge, but if you do, then I don't think you can really run Torch Song, because running a triple fire moveset, you just end up lacking a coverage in a lot of situations. And in this situation right here, Joran's just not going to be enough to KO the Skeledirge, so the opponent realizes there's just not a win con. I really like that Skeledirge animation of him rising up after he goes for the Torch Song. That is a pretty cool one. Moving into the next match, Malamar into Credilli. No baits here for Malamar, going straight for the Superpower. Opponent tries to call the bait, gets absolutely rocked. Safe switches into Drapion. And this is going to be a bit of a problem, as there isn't a good response to a Drapion safe switch on this team. Skeledirge hits the field, but Skeledirge is behind on energy, and that crunch did massive damage. Skeledirge is now, of course, boosted up due to that Torch Song, so these Incinerates will continue to ramp up damage. Skeledirge, unfortunately, will get outpaced, and now a tough decision awaits. We are going to see a double shield from the Skeledirge. Skeledirge going to get the final shield back or win switch. The opponent is going to give up switch advantage. I really like that play to throw one Incinerate and then switch out, because now the Skeledirge has an ability to make a move versus the opposing Credilli, because Bullet Seed is just not going to do a lot of damage. The opponent boosts up their attack with Torch Song, so it's time to lower them right back to 0 with a Rock Tomb. Opponent Well done there throwing when they did, because if they overfarm anymore, a second Rock Tomb could have been reached. And now in comes Malamar. Malamar is going to get to the Foul Play. This is super effective damage, but Foul Play's damage was reduced this season, but it's still enough to pick up the KO. In comes Credilli. Credilli, Grass Knot. I think Malamar can hang on here. They go for the Rock Tomb, but Rock Tomb will not be enough, and they're just going to instantly resign the match as the superpower is reached, and that's a good game. Malamar into Corviknight. Psywave may be resisted, but this is still a pretty nice matchup for Malamar across the board. Corviknight, unfortunately, just underwhelming in a lot of situations. Corviknight is going to fire off a charge attack. Malamar can very comfortably tank this because sand attacks just do not do enough to where Corviknight can threaten the farm down. Malamar looks like opting to overfarm quite a bit here. Could have gone for a superpower to threaten a KO. Opponent is going to switch out into a Dunsparce, and I think they were a lot better off staying in because Dunsparce is going to have to immediately give up a shield, and now in comes Credilli. The fall off of Dunsparce will be studied. All it took was one little nerf to roll out, and this Pokemon is just way worse neutrally now. It just really cannot compete in the same way that it could before, and I really think that Blastoise just does everything Dunsparce does now, but just quite a bit better. And this Credilli is just debuffing the Dunsparce more and more. The Dunsparce just has absolutely no breathing room here. It's going to switch out. In comes Corviknight, but that's going to be answered with Skeledirge. Skeledirge almost getting the farm down. The opponent making one final charge attack. It's going to be the Sky Attack. And in the back, opponent is now going to send out a Quagsire. Quagsire will take massive damage from the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is going to connect. Skeledirge getting now to the Torch Song. Torch Song is going to be resisted, but it's still a pretty good move. Quagsire tries for the farm down, but they're unable to get it. Dunsparce going to exit with energy, but this energy is not going to matter that much to Credilli. I still don't think a Drill Run knocks out here. They go for the Drill Run. It doesn't KO, and Credilli is going to take it. Credilli barely hanging on, making it to the Rock Tomb. And just for a little bit of bad manners, Malamar getting to the superpower and takes the win over the Dunsparce. Moving into the next match, Malamar picking up a pretty okay lead leading into an opposing Credilli. Credilli, of course, going to be a very common pick this season because Rock Tomb is just an absolutely cracked move. Superpower into Credilli. This opponent is going to shield it, and now we're going to have a safe switch into the mirror. The opponent will immediately apply a debuff with Rock Tomb. They're going to switch out into Clodsire. This would be a pretty okay matchup for Credilli, but being unfortunately debuffed before this matchup means that these Grass Knots are just doing absolutely nothing. So Credilli can't really gain a lot of ground in this matchup. The opponent is going to go for a Stone Edge. Switch Clock will be available after this next charge attack, so if he wants to pivot out, he will have the ability to do so. He is actually just going to stay in here and get to, oh, I thought he could get there, but he just can't get the move. That's a little bit unfortunate. Getting that Grass Knot would have set up really nice farm down range for the Malamar, but unfortunately, the Poison Sting registered right as that move was reached. Now we're going to see a Foul Play fired off by the Malamar. Foul Play is going to pick up the KO onto the Clodsire. The opponent still does have Credilli, but Credilli only has one shield to hide behind now. Malamar more than happy to just continue to farm up energy. No one move's going to KO here, especially if they go for the Rock Tomb. In the back, oh no, that's Sableye, and this is not looking good, as Sableye is something that's going to do really, really well into Skeledirge. Skeledirge can't quite get to the Torch Song here. Skeledirge is going to commit the shield, and Skeledirge has to hope that it can get a farm down, but it cannot. The new pacing on Shadow Sableye coming in clutch for the opponent. Malamar gonna try for a farm down, but Shadow Sableye gets the sweep for the opponent, and that's game over. We move to the next match, Malamar into an opposing Skeledirge. Now this matchup right here, Skeledirge versus Malamar, is one of the reasons why, even though Torch Song is a big buff for Skeledirge, I don't think Skeledirge is going to have a ton of meta viability. Because Skeledirge is just still so slow to that first charge move. 15 turns in this current meta, that is sloth levels of slow. And in that previous game, with just a small energy lead, Sableye getting 2 moves before Skeledirge gets 1, I think not having a 40 energy move is still a pretty big concern for Skeledirge. I do think Torch Song does make it a lot better, but man, trying to get to that first charge move, even if you're on even energy, but especially if you're down a little bit of energy, is just absolutely torturous. Speaking of torturous, this poor Umbreon is so debuffed. There's just nothing it can do. Credilli being an absolute bully. Credilli gonna farm up to 100 energy and easily pick up the KO with the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is going to KO the Umbreon. Opponent going to bring back in the Skeledirge. Skeledirge immediately met with a super effective Rock Tomb, and that is going to grab their final shield. They do not want to risk another Rock Tomb being reached. They're firing off this charge attack instantly. It is going to be a Blast Burn from the Skeledirge. In comes Malamar in the back. The opponent does have a Blastoise, and Blastoise is not what you're hoping to see when you have a Skeledirge in the back. Foul Play will do some pretty significant damage, able to outpace here with the residual energy on the Malamar, and now this is just going to be a win because Smudgy will be able to let this go. And Skeledirge, up an Incinerate and up a Shield, will very comfortably win the mirror, and the opponent will immediately concede the match. Malamar into Primeape. Not a Pokemon I've seen as frequently this season just because of the sheer amount of Psywave users. They're going to safe switch a Decidueye, and that's going to be incinerated down by Skeledirge. They go for the Spirit Shackle, hoping for a potential debuff, but the debuff does not come through. And now Skeledirge going for the Torch Song. Opponent will commit the shield, but due to the boost, they get fully incinerated down. Out comes the Diggersby, and Diggersby is going to really struggle to try and quick attack down here. These quick attacks are double resisted. This Skeledirge ramping up more and more and more, and that's going to pressure the opponent to fire off some energy. That Skeledirge just got so much value, KOing 1.5 Pokemon by itself. Opponent is going to try to play to a CMP tie, but Credilli more than happy to overfarm, and it's a bait as well from the opponent. Opponent now going to send in Primeape, but Primeape, I mean, they're just down too much energy. There's 100 energy on this Credilli. Credilli gets to land the Grass Knot. Quick switch into the Malamar, and there's just no hope for the opponent to ever gain traction in this game. Rage Fist, not going to cut it, and the opponent will immediately concede the match. Moving to the next match, Malamar met with a Shadow Dragonite. Now this matchup in previous seasons, Malamar was forced to superpower if it wanted to win the matchup, so that way it could outpace the Dragonite. But now with the cheaper Foul Play pacing, it's no longer going to have to do that. It should just be able to fire off these charge attacks, going straight Foul Play, and be in a pretty okay position. So Foul Play is going to be reached. Opponent is going to switch out and make a nice catch onto Gastrodon. Gastrodon absorbing that Foul Play, but Gastrodon's not going to like what it sees as Credilli hits the field. No baits here from Credilli, just looking to immediately pick up the knockout. Down goes Gastrodon. Out comes a Dragonite. Dragonite is going to be firing off energy here, and this superpower, oh, they actually go for a bait. The superpower would have easily KO'd, but they end up going for a bait, and that's going to cost them. Rock Tomb picks up the knockout. In the back is Toxapex. Toxapex, we're going to see a switch to Malamar. Malamar gets the Foul Play, and the Credilli is very close to a charge attack as well. Foul Play is going to connect. The worry now is there's a lot of energy loaded on that Toxapex, and I think Credilli is too low where it can't actually get a move. In comes the Skeledirge. Skeledirge is going to no shield. I think the opponent's Toxapex is actually going to be able to take this game. A Toxapex up energy is basically what they needed in this endgame, and unfortunately that's what they have. Skeledirge is going to go for the Torch Song bait, hoping that this bait will allow a Shadow Ball to be reached, but I think the opponent's just going to outpace here, and they do. Throwing in the middle of the Incinerate, denying any attempt at a catch. In comes Credilli, and Credilli just does not have the health to make it to the Grass Knot. Hopping into the final match, Malamar into Wheezing. Bit of an interesting matchup here where Psywave is hitting for super effective damage, but of course the charge moves from Malamar can't really do anything. Opponent goes for a brutal swing here, so they did go for a bait, and that bait ended up being called. The opponent switches out into a Grumpig. I don't think that's the switch they wanted to make. Grumpig takes massive damage, and now Skeledirge is going to gain so much ground. Skeledirge is going to be shielding up the Shadow Ball, getting a massive farm down, and leaving with 100 energy. Oh boy, things could get out of hand very, very quickly. In comes the wheezing Skeledirge, firing off the Torch Song. That's going to be shielded, and the opponent is going to be actually playing to a CMP tie here. Brutal Swing will not KO. Skeledirge firing off a second Torch Song. This will easily KO the opponent with another shield. They're going to try and farm down, and they do, but they take so much damage along the way. In comes the Malamar. Malamar is now going to be met with an opposing Credilli, and Malamar's already at 2 superpowers. Credilli is very strong, but if it's down energy in the zeros, life gets very uncomfortable. Banking the move for later, switching in the mirror, and that just sets up a guaranteed win condition where the opponent now has no way of winning this game. They can apply debuff after debuff in the mirror, but it's just not going to matter as Smudgy gets closer and closer to the back-to-back Rock Tombs, and once he reaches these back-to-back moves, this game is over because the Credilli will get KO'd, and so will the Wheezing as well. So overall, this team ended up getting quite a few wins. But now let's come to the important part of the video, and let's talk about Skeledirge. Obviously, I think Torch Song is a really big buff. Having the same damage as Disarming Voice, base damage that is, of course not factoring in same type attack bonus, 70 damage, 45 energy, but having a guaranteed attack boost, it's a big buff for a Pokemon that has Incinerate like Skeledirge. Like we've seen Talonflame really enjoy Flame Charge in certain metas, and Torch Song provides much of the same. With same type attack bonus, Torch Song does give Skeledirge a much more reliable bait move than Disarming Voice ever was, because with same type attack bonus, overall it's going to be doing a lot more damage in matchups, and it does give you that 3-2-2 pacing that Talonflame does enjoy with Fly. I still think 15 turns to the first move, considering that it's a Fire Ghost type, means that it's unlikely to see a lot of meta play in the Open Great League. I think it's going to be a terror in certain limited metas, but I think being a Fire Ghost right now puts you at a pretty distinct disadvantage in a lot of matchups, just with how the meta is shaping up in this Might and Mastery season, but metas can always change. So I think it's definitely worth playing the Community Day. It's a pretty cool shiny, getting some shinies and evolving. You can evolve some with Blast Burn and then some with Torch Song Shadow Ball, as I think Blast Burn Disarming or Blast Burn Shadow Ball could potentially be viable. I think its best moveset right now is the Torch Song plus Shadow Ball, but it's worth getting a few legacy ones just in case that moveset does end up being the preferred moveset down the road. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.